Philippians chapter 4, 4 through 10, teaches ways for us to change our beliefs and how it impacts our emotions. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, the scriptures are full of these same remedies that we're talking about here. I mean, for example, the two books that have the most, Psalms would probably lead the way. Proverbs is close, man. Proverbs and Psalms say so many things, not just about changing your beliefs and you'll feel better, but here's one. They'll say, a mean word tears a man down. A kind word builds him up. In Proverbs, there's an example right there. A good friend of mine, Gary Sipsey, clinical psychologist, he says, if a person refuses to do this, you can be their surrogate frontal lobe, which simply means you can do their thinking for them.
Exactly right.
So when someone says, bummer, and if the person says, oh, this is the end of the world, I flunked that test, this is probably going to be the end of my life, some euphemistic type thinking, you go, into your life? You mean like until tomorrow? Well, yeah, you know what I mean. That's going to put me in a bad mood till tomorrow. We'll say that because, and you put the idea in their mind, you correct it. Okay. Well, in Philippians chapter 4, Paul begins by saying, the Lord is near to you, and he says, be careful for nothing. Now, the Greek word, what's usually translated this way now, the King James says, be careful for nothing. The Greek word says, be anxious for nothing. And by the way, not a counselor, not a psychologist, but Backus and Champion, whose book we've talked about, Backus and Champion say the flint and steel that causes the spark of anxiety is the worst possible thing that's going to happen, and it's going to happen right now. When you see those two things, you got the two things that make the spark. Depression, the depression type things would be anger and failure to forgive, and those create, I'm going to get back at him, I'm going to be angry, and yeah, you just cursed yourself. You didn't do anything to that person. So Paul says, be anxious for nothing, or correspondingly, Psalm says, why so downcast, O my soul? Put your hope in God. So for being downcast, being down, he thinks an upper, he praises. So all through Psalms, Proverbs, and Philippians, other passages, Ephesians got similar wording. The thing is, you're going through something right now, counteract it. And Paul says four things. Be anxious for nothing. So the subject is anxiety. It could be you're down, but you're anxious. What do? Number one, pray. Now I've heard people say, why worry when you can pray? But sometimes the prayer is a way to refocus. Secondly, Paul says, with thanksgiving. I give lectures where I go, how many of you in the middle of a worked up emotional state have ever praised? Your favorite song comes on the Christian radio station you listen to, or you got to church in bummer of a mood, you told your wife or husband you go, kids are here, you got to go, but your favorite song comes up, they're singing it next.
Maybe you've heard it this way, that praise or gratitude and anxiety cannot occupy the same space.
That's a way to look at it. So I'll ask the crowd, I'll go, how many of you have ever been in a really bad mood? You're in a down mood or you're in an up mood, you're too anxious, and you start praising the Lord. How many of you? Either you do it on purpose, I'm going to praise the Lord, or you just push the button on the radio and something else came up, or this group at church started singing it. Hands go up all over. I go, obviously, we have not practiced this. What happens to you? And somebody will say, and they'll start calling things out. I'll say, real pithy things. What happens? And somebody will say, I immediately feel better. I'll say, how soon? Somebody goes, seconds. I'll say, does it last? If I keep up the other kind of thinking. And they'll say things, but here's my favorite one, the favorite general answer. They'll say, I got over right away. Why? I began looking at my problem from God's perspective. I changed my perspective. And I'd use a simple example. If I flunk this test, I'll be fish bait. I'm not going to be able to go to college, right? Well, first of all, it's probably not true. But let me just ask you something. If you don't go to college, do you know a lot of people who don't go to college and make a lot out of their life? Yeah, my dad. Yeah, there you go, bingo. Quit lying to yourself. And that's you're being their surrogate frontal lobe. You're thinking so. First step, pray. Second step, thanksgiving. The third step is the goody two shoes verse, I call it, because you don't use it till you need it. But instead of the anxious thoughts of verse 6, you go to the whatever, and different translations have the words differently. Whatever's good, strong, peaceable, and then it ends by saying that if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think on these things. And that word for think there is a word. It's a strong word that means think deeply and single-mindedly about something. So, first step, pray. Second step, give thanks. Third step, exchange your anxious thoughts for the truth-creating thoughts, which would be this. Look, I think I'm going to go to college, but if I don't, that doesn't determine my life. Well, yeah, he or she just broke up with me, but good chance, just odds, they weren't going to be the person I was going to marry anyway. Another example, well, someone just told me I have a debilitating disease, so you also have eternity. Now, I'm not saying anything could happen to you right now, but no matter what, and don't forget 1 Peter, 4 words, can't be taken from you, can't rust, can't be stolen, it's never going to fade, it's going to be there. So tell yourself the right things. And then the last step there from Paul, verse 9, is what I call practice, practice, practice. Paul says, whatever you see in me, he means use me as your example. He already says, not that he's perfect, but whatever you see in me, do it, and the God of peace will be with you. Twice he promises peace in these passages, and he says, whatever happens, the God of peace will be with you. So practice, practice, practice. And just a reminder, when's the most important time to practice this? When you're the most anxious, when you need it right now. When's the second best time to practice it? When you don't need it. Why do you say that? Because you know your personality and you will need it. Tomorrow, next week, next month, you will need it. So first best time, now. Second best time, when you don't need it, because you will need it. So once again, it's be anxious for nothing, verse 6. Then he says, pray, give thanks, exchange your thinking, and he ends that exchange verse by saying whatever is excellent or praiseworthy. Thanksgiving and praise are different, but very important. And keep practicing it. Those can change the world. And and there's other helps for getting in there. And we'll be mentioning, back as a champion, telling yourself the truth. Locate, remove, and replace is the way to do that third step, to get in there and to root it out and put the right one in its place.
Yeah, powerful principles.
They are powerful. And here's the key. They work. Hey, let me add this point, one line. I've had people tell me, they'll say, oh man, I was down, it didn't go right away. I'll go, let me just ask you something. When you seriously practice this, has it never gotten at least a little better? And that's all I say. They'll go, it always works. May not take everything out right away, but I'm better than I was before I did it. And when you get really good at it might only take you 1 minute. Is it worth 1 minute of good thinking? Is it worth 2 minutes of good thinking? It goes away. So you can take care of it.